friendly reminder that once you have that surface, it only takes a matter of minutes to sort of generate all the componentry that needs to be laser cut. It's all labeled, etc. Right? So small objects, inches. Let's just do that. I selected small objects, inches, and of course I'll probably go into the tools pull down, double check those here in a minute, but just to make sure that my units are set correctly. Tools options. We'll go back to this tools options box here several times today. But first I'm just going to go to units and just double check and make sure they're set to units. Okay, great. All right. So I'm just going to quickly regenerate something that we can then turn into, that sort of assembly drawing, that sort of exploded Axon. So that gives you some time to open it up on your system if you want, your own, and maybe save out a version, right, that you'll be using in editing for this drawing, right? All right, let's see. Recent files, surface classifications. That looks about right. I kind of like that. Let's just do that. Go ahead and bake this into layer 1. Close Grasshopper. I'll just move this out of my positive X, positive Y quadrant, so it's off in space by itself. All right, I'm going to convert this bad boy into ribs. Tools. Rhino script editor. Hit play. 10, sure. 10, yeah. 0.75 inches. 20, 40. Material thickness 040. All right. There we go. Let's go. Look at that. All right. So a couple of other things, right? I'm going to open up Grasshopper. And in this case, I will open up an unfolding example. Sure. Let's do unfolding example. Why not? I think what you'll see is that I have to go all the way back to the left, right? Just like we do in Grasshopper. We plug in the ingredients on the left, and then everything flows to the right, correct? So what does it need? It needs a surface. And then it looks like it's going to divide the surface 10 times by 10 times, just like we did with the Rhino script. So let's go ahead and do that. Set one surface. There we are. All right. And now not only that, but you can see, ta-da, I have a bunch of unrolled components. I have a bunch of unrolled ribs as well, right? Unfolded, so to say. All right, so what I'm going to do first, I can always come back to this later, is I'm just going to take the versions that are joined together as polylines, or poly surfaces, sorry, and I'm going to go ahead and bake those on, let's say, a different layer. Let's say layer 2, why not? Now I can close this up, and you can see that I have all my three-dimensional components right here. Right? So you probably look at this at some point in time to sort of put your own together, right? Let's make it into a drawing, because that's what we do as architects. It's not necessarily that we look at the Rhino model and open it up. We don't actually go to the construction site and start making things. We give the instructions for someone else to make them, right? So we usually make those contract drawings, specifications, etc. So let's take a look at this. We have all the ingredients here, and one of the things I'm going to do is expand it upwards, right? I'm going to start to double check and make sure things are on different layers. I can sort of select things on and off, right? You also notice that everything's sort of surface paper thin, right? When in fact we know that for certain that we're actually dealing with something that has a little bit of thickness to it, right? So even a very thin edge has a double line to it, right? Sort of two lines, sort of talking about a side face versus a front and a back face, right? So we'll do some offsetting, etc., in order to sort of make this look a little better. All right, so first things first, I recognize that this purple layer are my shading components. Hey, I actually spelled it right. Hot damn, on the first try. This is my shell surface, right? The red one. And then you can see I have V strips and U strips. There's the V's, there's the U's. All right, let's turn these off and we can see these one at a time. So a couple of things that you might notice here, and you probably did notice it several times. sometimes the ribs were exploded in the three-dimensional version, right? So what I'm just gonna do is I'm just gonna turn off the U's and just select all the V's all at once, hit join, and it said that I don't really care about the curves, but it said 43 surfaces joined into 11 poly surfaces. And if I 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, yeah, I should have 11 ribs, right? So all those things were joined together as it could be. And I'll turn the U's on and the V's off. I'll do the same for the U's. Just gonna join those bad boys together. And not a big surprise, 76 curves joined into 22 open curves. And again, 11 open poly surfaces. Beautiful. Perfect. All right, so I'm going to turn those back on. You can see now that we have those somewhat organized. Let's see, what else do we have here? We have curves. Interesting that we have curves. We have sort of inner curves and outer curves. I'm just going to leave those in for right now. All right, so last but not least, before I start moving things around, first of all, I'm going to save, but oh yeah, let's see. Axon test. This is in 367 fall 2024, project 3. Yeah, sure, okay, save. All right, so I've saved it just in case something happens. But what I want to do is I want to create an Axon view, right? So when you right-click on this viewport label, right? Not only can you change the display mode, and we'll actually start to make our own display mode here in a minute, but we can say set view, and then we can see top, bottom, left, right, front, back perspective, 2-point perspective, isometric. So I'm going to pick isometric, and that was the northeast isometric. All right, now just look at this for a second, right? Like, given the option of being able to rotate this 90 degrees 4 different times, I'm probably not going to pick this one, right? It just looks weird. Right? It's not very good at showing my surface, right? And you need to do the same with yours, right? Just critical eye, just a little bit of judgment here on your part. So let's go northwest. Again, the northwest isometric, I mean, that's even worse somehow. I didn't even know that was possible, and yet it is. All right, so let's try the southeast. Now look at that. I can see most of the ribs, right? In fact, I can see most of the shell surface, the top. And so I want to make sure that I'm not rotating my view, but I can pan. And now I have a perfect isometric, right? It's 30-30 isometric. And now I'm going to go ahead and turn everything back on. All right. And now let's move things up. In this case, I'm just going to use the gumball. So I'm going to turn the gumball tool on. That gives us the X, Y, Z axis that we can move things along fairly precisely, right? All right, and let's see. I want to select all my shading components, right? So I can just go to the shading components layer, right-click, and say select objects on this layer. There we are. Now I'm going to just click on that Z gumball and I'll move it up. I can zoom in or out. I just want to make sure that if I use my right mouse button, I'm holding down the shift key and panning, right? I'm not rotating my view because then it's not at 30-30 perfect isometric. So you have to go back and set it back to isometric, right? So just keep that in mind, right? Like it's that simple. All right. And I'll go ahead and move these up a bit, zoom out a bit. Same with the surface. I'll just go to that layer, select objects on that layer, and move this thing up a bit. And you know what? Actually, maybe this is like the starting ingredient. Maybe I'll just move this down. Yeah, there we go. Kind of like that. And then let's see, I have the V strips and the U strips. They're sort of differentiated, so I can right-click on the V strips and say select those objects. Now, what's interesting is that it's selecting all of these curves over here at the same time. Oof. What I might do is just simply hide those. Just Control H those bad boys. Might save them for later in case I need them. You already have your laser cut files though, right? So you can always refer back to those. Okay. Did you see what I did? I moved my view. Uh-oh. Right, so I'm gonna have to set it back to the right axon in a minute, but I needed to sort of get rid of this stuff. Right, so again, go here, right, click on the viewport label, set view, isometric. In this case, I think it was southeast isometric. There we go. Perfect again. All right, now I'll go ahead and select my Z strip or V strips, move them up in the Z. There we go. That's kind of what I meant to say. All right. All right, so now this is just a model, right? What we need to do is A, give things thickness. That's one of the things we figured out when we were actually laser cutting stuff, right? You know, giving things thickness is more than meets the eye, right? But we need to do it here visually as well. And then we need to make an actual drawing, right? Okay, so it's not going to have purple and red and crap like that in it. Like, I mean, I don't know. Even if I was going to add color to a drawing, I would never just like pick web safe red and purple. That's like terrible, right? All right. Anyway, so let's see. First things first. Let's type in offset. Offset surface. And now it's going to ask me for all the surfaces to offset. I'm just going to zoom out for a minute. I'm just going to select all the ribs, right? I can go here and say select objects, and then also with the V strips and the U strips, select objects, right? And hit enter. And then it asks for the distance, and then there's a few other sort of inputs here, right? Again, if this was a node in Grasshopper, there'd be multiple inputs on the left side, right? One sort of saying solid, is it toggle it true or false? What's the distance? And that would be a sort of you can poke in another slider. So for distance, right, I'm going to think about that thickness. I'm going to say 0.040. Sorry, I'm just going to click on distance. There we go. And type in a new distance, 0.040. Hit enter. Solid, I'm going to make sure that that's set to yes. If it says no, you can go ahead and click it and toggle it back and forth until it says yes. Delete input, yes. And then flip all, I'm going to leave for right now. This is just a visual drawing. It's not going to matter which direction I actually offset in this case. I mean, it has no bearing on the actual fabrication data, right? That's flat stuff for the laser cutter. So, and then I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. It should offset all of these, give them just a little bit of thickness each time, right? All right, there we go. Yeah, you can see. Now these things actually look like they were made out of virtual chipboard. That's great. It has isoforms on it, oddly. But anyway. Now we need to do the same thing for these, right? So all these things are joined together. I might even make these just slightly thinner. Let's see here. If I can just select them all at once and say offset surf. This time I'm going to change the distance to, let's say, 0.020, right? Let's give it maybe some cardstock or something. Let's see, flip all. No, I'm just going to sort of leave it as that. Let it go. Just give this just a little bit of thickness, right? All right. Okay, now at this point we could do something called Make 2D and then actually take a three-dimensional view and actually have it trace all the edges and actually produce a flat drawing for us. But there's an easier way of doing this that's actually cleaner. What we're going to do is we're just going to make our own display mode, right? So that's it's a term for something I think you're already probably accustomed to, right? You can see that there's wireframe, shaded, rendered, ghosted, X-ray, technical, artistic, pen, monochrome, Arctic, and ray traced view, display modes already, right? So what we're going to do is we're actually going to go under the hood to the settings, and we're going to take technical. We're going to make a copy of that one because that draws all the edges and lines that we want, and then we'll actually turn on the settings inside so that it actually combines the rendered mode with the technical mode, right? So we start to get a line drawing with a little bit of soft shadows and tone, some shadows, shading, etc., right? Okay. All right, so you can see what these things look like when we turn them on, right? Like let's say we go from shaded to just a simple render. It goes to this sort of default white plaster, white clay model render, right? And depending on your settings, it might display certain curves or it might not. Let's see here. We can also go to technical. Let's go to technical and see what happens. Okay, what you can see is that we actually see edges, we even see hidden lines, things like that, right? So what we can do is we can actually use these as base styles and begin to create our own, right? Which is something that's really interesting. Last time I took students to LA for a field trip, right? We went to a couple of firms that were doing this, making their own display modes just to like sort of, again, their sort of design process, like up front, they're always making these sort of interesting collages, sort of taking the digital geometry and drawings and sort of compositing things together in really interesting, strange, fantastic ways. So anyway, what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna go back to shaded and let's just take a look here. What we're gonna do. I'm gonna go to the tools, pull down, options. I'm gonna hold my mouse cursor there. Tools, pull down, options. If you're on a Mac, I believe you go to, I don't have the Mac version of Rhino, but you can go here and go to settings for Rhino, and then when the box pops up, there should be a display mode setting or some sort of setting. But again, gives you the exact same, more or less the exact same options here. So I'm just gonna go to Rhino, options, view, display modes. And you can see that all of these display modes have a series of settings you can go through and change, right? Whether it's wireframe, shaded, rendered, ghosted, etc. So let's go to the technical one, because that one gives us edges and lines in a very granular way. You can see that there's all these different objects. You can talk about how points are drawn, curves, lines, clipping planes, etc. You can give line weights, you can give line types, you can give line colors. So I'm just going to go back to display modes, right? If I go to view, display modes, and I just select display modes, I don't crank it out, but I just look at the list here. And you can see that if I select technical, I can go ahead and hit copy. Right? And now it's giving me as a base technical drawing display mode. I can go ahead and change its name. I'm going to go ahead and change this to, let's say, 367 Axon drawing. All right. And I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. Now, the reason I'm going to come back to there and start to mess around with settings, right? But the reason I do that is because I want to come back here and sort of set it. Now you can see that my new display mode is actually listed as one of the display modes in Rhino now. So I can say 367 Axon drawing. All right, and there we go. Now, as I start to change settings, in that settings box, I can view it in real time and see what those changes are actually doing. All right, so kind of a helpful way to sort of play around here with the display modes and sort of still see what you're up to. All right, so I'm gonna go to render property, no, not render property, sorry. Wrong pull down, tools pull down, options, okay? And go back to this. So I can go to view, display modes. Now you can see this new one that I just made, 367 Axon drawing. All right, so I can click here, then I can click on grid, I can click under objects and start to sort of change things. I'm just gonna go back to 367 Axon drawing. You can see that there's a certain number of settings here that I can just sort of turn on or off. Do I want a ground plane on automatically? Do I just want shadows cast onto it? Do I want to shade objects? Let's try shading, see what happens. Take it a minute. Let's say objects color, let's say rendering material. There we go. All right, now you can see that it's giving us that white clay render in tone and shadow. But we can also see that it's giving us the layer lines, right? We have violet lines and red lines. I cannot stand those, like, ugh. That just sort of, it's like they tell, like, hey, you didn't really try. Anyway, I'm gonna turn off show curves, but I'm gonna make sure that, in this case, maybe I'll leave hidden lines on, show edges, show silhouettes, show creases. I'm gonna say, make sure that, let's say, show intersections are on. All right. Now I'm just going to go down further. I'm going to go to grid, right? So when I first click on 367 Axon drawings, right? Here are the settings. I turn on shade objects, and then for color and material usage, I tell it to just use the default rendering material. Okay. When it comes to shadows, I can turn shadows on. So I'm just going through some of these and taking a look at what we have here. I don't know why. Oh, okay, it's just taking a minute for it to actually load. Okay. All right. So under objects, I can drill down into this, and let's see, hide object. So I can go to points. I'm just going to leave points the way they are. I don't have any points in my model, but I can go to curves and color curve usage. These are for like actual curve geometry, not like the edges that it's drawing, but for like the sort of curves that maybe you put in here. So if you actually have line work and curves that you wanted to actually see in this rendering, you could use this. But instead of saying use object's color, I'm just going to say use a single color for all curves, black, right? And then width, I'm going to say in pixels. You can give it a line weight, right? Okay. Now let's go to lines. I think that's a more interesting one because here you can start to look at edge lines, hidden lines, the silhouette, and intersection lines, right? You can set these all at once right here and just forget about it. You can change their line weights. So let's do this. Let's use single color. And let's turn all of these to black because, I mean, come on. Like, this shouldn't look like Mickey Mouse or something. Let's go here. Let's make sure that we're all using actual line work. Silhouette, maybe we beef that up. Oftentimes we do, depending on the scale of the drawing. Intersection line. So just so you can maybe see this, silhouette, I'll just beef this up quite large. And now you can see when I zoom in here, maybe you can see, come on. I'll just zoom in here. You can see that this silhouette, right, the sort of edges where there's surface on one side but air on the other side, right, the silhouette is beefed up, bigger, right? And typically we do that, right? You think about when we're making a drawing, line weights, very particular. Here you can set those very precisely. This looks like an interesting drawing right here, just like a banner image for the class now or something. Okay. One of the things you probably need to do is to think about the size of this thing and its resolution. One of the things I probably typically tend to do is sort of reverse engineer back from the piece of paper that I'm going to use. Let me see if I have, in fact, I have a neon green eraser here, marker. That's easier to see. All right, so what I might do is say, this is actually going to be, I don't know, I looked at the proportions of it. It's greater than 9 by 16. 9/16, it's like a 4-to-1 ratio. So let's say I go 48 by 12. Actually, it'd be 12 by 48. Usually put the width first and the height second, right? So if we thought about this and we thought, let's make a high-res image, right? This is in inches, 12 inches by 48 inches, right? What we can do is we can tell how many pixels by how many pixels it is, right? So 12 times 300 is, come on, think, 12 times 300 is, right? Okay, and 48 times 300 is something ridiculously large. 3600 by, what's 48 times 300? Who wants the A plus for the day?
14,400.
How much?
14,400.
14,400. All right. 144. 48 times 3 is 144. That makes sense because it's 12 times 12, right? Okay. So, one of the things I might do is then try to find a proportion. I don't know why my mouse is being so stupid and just incredibly sensitive. There, okay. Is to simply try to make this thing similar proportion. What the hell? You know, a good craftsman never blames his shitty tools, does he? All right, so let's go. All I want to do is simply resize this thing, but for whatever reason, there we go. Way sensitive there. Yeesh. All right. Okay. So if I have something like that where everything's inside and I simply did, oh, you know what? I don't like this shadow on the ground here. And what's more, when I render it out, you're gonna see a little bit of gray just sort of stop suddenly. So I'm gonna go ahead and get rid of that setting. Again, if we wanna change anything in this display mode, we go to Tools Options, we go to that display mode, and I can say ground plane settings off. Let's turn them off, right? Now I don't have that artificial ground plane that it's putting in. And I won't have that sort of drop shadow on an artificial ground plane. All right, so I'm in parallel view. I can go to View, Capture to File. And now I can say Viewport, but really what I want to do is I want to say Custom. In this case, I can plug this in. Excuse me. 3600. Yikes, this is going to be huge. By 14400. Ooh, there we go. All right. Maybe I'll change this down. I'll just sort of play this by ear here. 12,000. Let's go 10,000. What I'm trying to do is look at this preview and just get this as large as I can. All right, I think I'm happy there. So 3600 by 9,000 pixels. You can see the preview. It's going to give me, I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. It's going to ask me, do I want to save it as a JPEG or a PNG? I'm going to say PNG. I'm going to go to the desktop and save this in the right place. 367, project 3. And I'll call this Axon drawing, and I'll hit save. It might take it a minute. That's actually pretty large thing that's generating significantly more information that it's having to generate just to use that page. I'm showing on my screen. Did it work? Oh, it says image successfully saved. Let's open this up and see what we got. So maybe I'll open up, I already have InDesign open. I'll open up Illustrator though. Is Illustrator opening? What we're going to do is we're going to place this image, we're going to add some labels and some tags, and then we'll be ready to submit it. Maybe. Come on, Illustrator. Sometime today. I did, and then I saved this PNG. Good question. What other questions while we wait on Illustrator to... No, I accidentally opened Illustrator 3 times. Come on, dude. Let's see here. I forgot about this. So many projects, just ran out of time. Let's see. File, new, all right, in Illustrator. In this case, I'm going to say width 12 inches, height 48, just like I said before. Clearly, that's going to be a vertical oriented sort of portrait orientation. So I'm creating a new Illustrator file. Let me just zoom out. Okay, that made 0 sense to me. Why did it give me that? New, width, 12, height, 48. This isn't difficult, come on. Create. There we are. Okay, so 48 might be a bit extreme. We can always go back into our artboard and sort of stretch it and change it as needed. But first and foremost, let's go ahead and place. File, pull down, place. And let's place this bad boy. Where did that go? Oh, that's on my desktop. Okay, I gotta revisit that. Let's see, project 3, and there it is, Axon drawing, PNG. It's gonna be huge. There it is. In fact, you can see that there's, I don't know, let's see how well this actually did. So I absolutely hate this version of Illustrator. Where'd it go? There we go. Just want to stretch you out, Illustrator. Come on. There we are. But one of the things you might notice, you might not see this, so I'll show you where I get it. What I typically do is I go to Windows, pull down Workspace, and then Essentials Classic. So I just slightly change my Illustrator interface so that I get that sort of information bar when it's off. It's actually pretty handy when I have something selected. So here I can say, let's resize it from the top left corner. And right now it's 50 inches wide and 125 inches tall. And I'm just going to say it really needs to be 12 inches wide. So it's going to be 30 inches tall. And voila. Okay, now it sort of fits a little better. And then I'm not quite sure what it's doing here, but these line types are not working, so that's an issue. You guys see this? It like published like a bunch of dashed lines, and the width of the dashed lines are, oh, I know what we did. I made the thickness of the lines for, oh gosh. All right, so let me go back to Rhino. Oh dear, that's not good. All right, that just looks awful anyway. Let me just go back to Tools Options. Let's go to Objects, Lines. I'm going to set this back to like, see if I can do 1.5 or if it absolutely wants a whole number, doesn't it? Okay, we'll just do 1. All right, now I'm going to just go ahead and recapture this to file. This looks okay. I'll try this one more time and see if I just fix that issue or not. Axon drawing is a PNG with transparent background, 3600 by 9000. And still waiting on this to say it's done. There we go. All right, let's see what happens now. Place. And there it is. I'll go ahead and set it here. It looks like I have a similar issue. Why is that? I mean, I can tell it's the dashed lines, right? But the dashes widths are like changing dramatically, which is kind of a weird thing. I don't get it. Maybe I don't even need the hidden lines anyway. Or maybe I'll just turn those off. So I go back to 367, show hidden lines, turn those off. And let's see if that actually changes if that fixed that one issue. And again, just like I say, I mean, you know, nothing's perfect the first time you try it. I'm gonna hit OK. Let's save it again. Why not? Take 3. Is it done? It looks like it's done. Let's place it into Illustrator one more time. Okay, yeah, it was those hidden lines, the dashed lines. For whatever reason, the widths were scaling like big time. I would need to look into why that's happening, but I can honestly say that at this scale, you're not really going to want to see the hidden lines anyway. It's like maybe a kind of a craziness here that's not helpful. So I'm going to select these and sort of change this to 12. Now it's like 12 by 30 or 30 again. Okay. Okay, right? So that's how you can do that just through display modes. You can, again, the way the more, like let's say you zoom way in. If you did that, then you can start to get more nuance with line weights. Since this is so zoomed out, it's having an issue with those, so I'm just gonna again, I set them to 1. And that way I don't get too dark of lines here along the edges. Okay. Let's see here. Another thing I could always do, in your free time, is I could go back to before I sort of move these things around. Oops. Redo. There we go. And I could always do something that's, just showing the whole thing put together. Right? I mean, again, when you do it this way with the different display modes, it becomes fairly easy to sort of play around and produce certain drawings. The hard part is to sort of keep things at the right scale, or, sort of consistent scale. So that's something to consider when you're working with this. I'm not sure why it's finding something out here. Let me just hide that. And then, okay, yeah. There's still some stray tags there. There they are. Yikes. All right. Okay. So if I went here and let's say I go ahead and change those back, I just want to see what this looks like. And again, this is more of just like experiment with this, right? Try your best to make something that actually, you would think would be actually helpful if you were, let's say, flat pack this and shipped it through IKEA or something and had people put it together on their own. So now I can turn those hidden lines back on. You can start to see these things. I'm just going to fit to screen. I'm gonna go tools, view, capture to file. Let's say instead of 3600, let me just go back to the viewport, and then I'll just say scale it by 3. Let's see what happens when I scale it by 2. Yeah, so I'll get 5880 by 3188. Still pretty decent size. And I'll just do Axon drawing, and I'll just name it 2. It's not exploded, just an overall, right? So again, you can sort of play around with these things, but in Illustrator, let's see if this actually works. There we go. In Illustrator, one of the things I would recommend doing before you sort of lose sight of this is to, you can use the text tool. I'm going to go ahead and double check. Let's see, where are my layers? There they are, layers. Just like with Photoshop, any Adobe product, if you don't see one of these boxes on the right, you can go to the window, pull down, and find it here, and you can toggle it on, right? So there you can see I have the layers box. Right now I just have one single layer. I'm going to go ahead and make a new layer. I'm going to call this text. And I'm going to go ahead and lock the layer 1 and just make the text layer the active layer. Now I can go ahead and make a piece of text here. And let's say I'm going to say V1. I'm going to go ahead and zoom in. Let's see, I don't like Myriad. I don't know why that's like some sort of default font. Helvetica Neue looks pretty good. Why not? Let's see, the size is set to 12. That's perfect. Right, I can see size 12 font. I don't need to make it like 48. That just looks awful, right? So, and I can start to make my own tags. Let's see here. Let me zoom in. So, for instance, sometimes I dabble here. Let's make this, then let's try to move this to the center. Come on now. There we are. Let's copy, paste. And then, I might, again, make a set of leaders. I'm going to just draw a line. Then I'm going to make sure that its stroke, its outline is black. I can change its line weight later if I want to. Let's go ahead and do this again. Let's go ahead and tag this. I can always look at the line properties and let's see, change their line weight. But of course, I can also change their ends. So the way their ends look, I can give it to sort of a leader or an arrow. I can say the scale needs to be 50% and 50%. All right. And I can begin to sort of add tags. And again, I know in hindsight this would have made maybe assembling these things a little easier. You appreciate it. To sort of start to tag this and label it. Ultimately, let's see here. You can try to line these things up so that they actually work pretty well together. You can always tone them down or turn them down in line weight or turn them to gray so they don't, they're visually they don't sort of dominate some of the more important graphics. Right, but I can go through and start to actually make these things and then start to make them, these leaders that. Let's see, I have this, and let's say I want to make it exactly like the other kind here. I can select it and then use where is the eyedropper tool? There it is. And then say use this style, and now it's going to look just like it, right? At least with the line weights and stuff. So here, and then I need to add the right arrowhead, just so everything's consistent. And change that scale, 50%. Right, so anyway. When it comes to these, right, I recommend maybe starting to label the corners, right? They say this is where 0, 0 is, this is where 10, 0, this is where 0, 10, this is 10, or 9, 9, or whatever it is. Okay? You don't necessarily have to label each one. That would just be unreadable, right? But again, you can just sort of play, sort of show where each sort of row and column starts. So in this case, I might make these things smaller for this set. Damn. All right. There we go. All right. 90. Over here would be 09. And then over here would be 99. 9 and a 9. And again, just thinking about how to sort of line these things up. In this case, I would just make some leaders. For the ribs, I would just simply make a row or column and just sort of have the leaders coming out. Some over here, some over here. Just do a good job of just sort of simply tagging things. Right? And again, remember, grids are your friend, right? Columns, rows, right? So, I wouldn't just put a bunch of like circles all willy-nilly all over the screen or tags, but simply line them up as a column, you know, the 5 over here on this side, the 5 over here on this side, so you can start to point to the right ones. Okay? Really nice and simple. Let's see. This is like the stuff you're doing at the very end, right? To make the drawing just absolutely perfect, but you're tired, you're not making any big decisions, you're just adding labels and, you know, following a few very simple set of rules, right? Hopefully. Yeah, maybe I decide to do that instead. Make these things pop out a little bit more. In which case I want to make them all consistent, right? It's a nice little leader. Kind of like that. Give this leader a little friend here. All right. Okay. Don't make it difficult. Just make it nice and clean and clear. Select all of these at once. Set that arrowhead at the end. Give it a 50% scale factor. Make things line up as much as I can. Document setup, I can just go ahead and see these artboards. I can, of course, just change the side. I don't really need that much. I know it's 12 inches wide and probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 30, 36 tall. Maybe now I can think about a piece of text that's a bit larger in scale. Let's see here. Let's go 36. Of course, I don't want to change the font. I just want to stick with, let's say, Helvetica Neue. No, my name doesn't need to be that big, that's for sure. Copy, and then if I paste in place, then it's already lined up. I can just move it down. Try to spell digital correctly. Just something simple. Decorate the page with useful information, and that's it. No decoration in real. Here's a drawing. It's going to drive me crazy until I actually finish this with all the later labels and leaders, darn it. Again, I'm drawing a line with 0 stroke, so once I have that selected, I can use this tool, the eyedropper tool, and just select a line that I've already drawn, just to sort of transfer the properties over. Right. That one has one, that one has one. Well, this one up here certainly needs one, doesn't it? All right. Sort of going out just a smidge and then and then breaking it to an angle. Let's go ahead and give that. Please don't use the little finger pointing at something like ever. I don't know why they even put that in here. It's what a joke. All right. And now it's just a matter of simply adding. Let's see here. Now that I have these, I can say copy, paste in place, which I think is like Command Shift Control V or something on the Mac keyboard. I can't remember offhand. And I can just change these, and then I can just change where those leaders actually go. 5, oops. Five, 6. Can use this other tool and just simply drag these. Right, little tricks in Illustrator. It takes a little while to get used to, but once you do, not too bad. Now at this point, I'd probably come over here and then label the rest over on the right-hand side, right? Let's see, I need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of these. Copy, paste. Just get rid of these bad boys. All right, just little things. 6, 7. No, half the time it's letting me select the existing text, and the other half the time it's making me make new text. It's really disgustingly silly here. 9, and then 10. Once we go to these two numerals together, I might have to sort of reposition my tag, right? That's unacceptable. Oof. So I'll just move that over a bit. There we go. Again, it's drawing with 0 weight and 0 color, so I'll go ahead and use that. That eyedropper tool is really handy sometimes. You get something that looks just right and you go, I just want everything to look like this. Use that eyedropper tool. That's what it's there for. Let's see, so we have this one. Let's go ahead and set that arrowhead. All right. Okay, and so on and so forth. You can save in Illustrator, you can save as an AI file. That's default Illustrator native file. But to submit, just simply save as and save as a PDF. PDF you should be able to upload pretty quickly and easily. Okay, do your best. Just have fun. No pressure, right? Like the pressure's off. Just spend a couple of minutes, auditing and crafting the drawing. So, learn a little more, or maybe refresh your knowledge of Illustrator if you need to. All right. Any major questions at the moment? There it is, right? Now it's labeled, it has my name, so I know whose it is. I can upload it to Canvas, and then of course I'll know who I'm grading, of course, but I do some V's or U's, whatever these are, some U's over here. All done. All right. Well, that's pretty much it, at least what I think I'm going to record and post online. Okay. We have some work time. Like I said, if you're at your laptop and you have your files, you can probably crank through this pretty quickly and get this submitted. I think it has like a deadline of like noon today. That's just simply saying like, hey, if you have a sense of urgency, do it, submit it, you're done with the class. I think it's actually open until, you know, like next week or next week, right? If you need the extra time, or you don't have your laptop here or something, or you gotta log into a computer somewhere else, that's fine. You can still submit it. It'll say late. I don't really have any desire to try to factor in some sort of like, I don't distinguish that, like delineate. So just make sure you get it submitted so I can give you credit. Like I said, again, really quickly, right? This is the last meeting time. I'm probably going to try to be here on Wednesday, just to, like, I'll be in my office for office hours if anybody needs any help. But I'm sort of recognize that it's the day before Thanksgiving, and the building will be like ghost town. I'll probably be like the first person, and at some points the only person in the darn building, at least for the morning. Let's see. But again, I've added 2 assignments. One, the 1,000-point one, you just submit this, right? Again, I've weighted it. It's not that hard, but I've weighted it so that, you know, if you do it, you submit it before the end of the semester, before I turn in grades, right? It sort of helps pull up your grade around, right? Like it's worth just as much as one of those prototypes you did were. The other thing I added was the 2,000-point final prototype. You submitted that on Wednesday in person. I've already graded them. If you submitted them on Wednesday, I've graded them. And I haven't entered them in, but I have the sheets and I have notes and everything else. So please, after class today, when you head up to studio, or if you're not even at studio, go up there, grab your grid shell. I don't want anything bad to happen to them if you want to keep them. Grab them before Thanksgiving holiday, before everyone leaves. I assume people are going to need the hallway the following week for studio reviews. So I just want to sort of say, you know, here's your chance. Don't worry about me anymore. You can sort of take them. They've been displayed prominently for a week. We're good to go. Right? If you have final prototypes that you need me to take a look at and grade, go ahead and here at the end, I can double check and make sure that I have you in my grade sheet. Look at things and I can talk about them, and I'll make sure I know the grade so that when I enter all the grades in campus, I have that, okay? If you have any blank holes in your grading, you know, this happens sometimes, right? Like the assignment was closed, so you couldn't submit, but you sent it to me via email, and I'm just like looking on my phone going, okay, I'll try to remember this if I'm back at campus. So if you have any holes or anything like that, feel free to either find me or email me. I'm happy to take a look at things, and what I typically try to do is just open up the assignment if you ask me, so that I have everything in the right place, and it'll tell me if I need something to grade something, but I understand sometimes there are holes in things, depending on life happening, etc. So again, just communicate. But again, it's been a pleasure having each and every one of you. I hope you found this useful. I mean, we covered a whole range of things, right? I mean, virtual modeling, parametric modeling, BIM, digital fabrication, performance, right? Sort of big 5. It'd be like malpractice if I didn't cover those things with you. And I try to make it as fun as possible, right? I mean, those grid shells, yeah, they grow on you after a while. They're like these little spiky armadillos. You know, you can name it if you want, make it a little pet, give it a leash. Don't walk around the neighborhood, people look at you weird. It's definitely not a Halloween costume for your small dog either, so don't try that. Again, have a great Thanksgiving holiday, and I'll see you around the building, I'm sure. Teach studio and a bunch of other classes, so. All right, take care. I'm up here if you need anything graded or help with something specific. Let me just make sure this is saved before I close it. Sometime today. All right. Man, Adobe's pretty bloated these days. Save, sure, why not? Okay. Oh, I'm still recording.